everyone, I'm Chipped Tunes, and today I'll be talking about how to analyze a specific composer's style. For today's video, we'll be talking about the work of Jeff Blim, who you're probably already familiar with if you've been around this channel before. If not, don't worry, I'll catch you up to speed. For future installments of this mini-series, I'll also be talking about how I apply these techniques to Gareth Coker and Murray Gold, two other composers I tried to emulate last year. If this sounds interesting to you, make sure to like and subscribe. Alright, let's get into it.
Sorry for the intrusion, Mr. President.
First, let's talk about Jeff.
Hope you don't mind if I let myself in.
He's a musical theater composer best known for his work with Team Star Kid, an indie theater company that's reached widespread online awareness through posting their musicals on YouTube. He's been particularly involved in writing music for their Hatchetfield series, which has also been a major focus on my channel since I began posting back in 2020. So when writing my original song Freedom, which you can check out up here, I wanted to take a deep dive on the music from the Hatchetfield series and try to capture that sound in a chiptune. So how do you actually capture or even define a composer's sound? The first step is just to listen as much as you can. Regardless of whatever musical style you're trying to achieve, if you don't listen to music from that genre, you'll never have that foundation to pull from. But I found that casual listening wasn't really sufficient when I sat down with a blank MuseScore file. So I developed a framework for active listening and doing case studies on individual songs, which I'll walk you through now. This enabled me to pick out concrete elements of Jeff's and other composers' writing styles so that I could apply them to my music in recognizable ways. I took a kind of reverse pyramid approach for listening to songs. The foundation of any song is the form or structure of it, so that's what I tried to identify first. Then I went more granular from there. Many of the Hatchetfield songs draw from familiar pop music elements and can be heard to have verses, choruses, and bridges, so that's where I started. As an example, let's take the song that I used as my biggest inspiration, Adore Me, from the musical Black Friday. We start with an instrumental introduction before going to a pretty standard verse-chorus structure. This song is a little interesting due to some dialogue interjections, but in general it works as a simple template.
You to think for yourselves. I want you to know what I mean when I say my evil shit. Okay? You will adore me. You'll kneel before me.
We can look briefly at a few other songs as well. For my investigation, I looked mainly at songs from Nightmare Time, because this was the particular style I most wanted to emulate. Once you've done your initial listening and have a wider pool of evidence to draw from, you can start to determine what kind of structure your song should take. I ultimately went with intro verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, ending, which is more or less what songs like Run Away With Me and Axeman use. This is just one way to start writing a song, whether you're trying to emulate another composer or not. But I find that having the skeleton planned out first is very helpful in avoiding writer's block and choice paralysis later on. Now that we've got the groundwork, let's look at how to identify what actually makes a composer sound distinctive. What makes a Hatchetfield song sound like it belongs in that universe? The elements I like to pick out after structure are harmony, melody, rhythm, instrumentation, and orchestration. Let me break those down in a bit more detail. First, harmony. As longtime viewers of the channel may know by now, this is definitely my weakest area, so I spend a lot of time just listening and trying to adopt what other composers have already proven to be interesting chord progressions. Someone like Jeff, who has a background in jazz, uses a lot of dissonance and less classical sounding chords. You may even see elements of the blues. Take this flat third in Join Us and Die, or even more in obviously blues-inspired songs like Latte Hate and Show Me Your Hands. These chord progressions are driven by really distinctive bass lines, either in simple descending lines like Feast or Famine, or something more active like in Literal Monster. Next, melody, and I'll combine this with rhythm since the two go hand in hand. For a lot of people, this is perhaps the trickiest thing to get right about composing, because a lot of it just depends on what sounds good. But there are a lot of tools you can use to craft a melody, even without inspiration. Repetition is key, especially if you're writing pop-sounding music like Jeff did with the Hatchetfield series. If you look at the opening of High School's Killing Me as an example, this is just one phrase that's more or less repeated for 8 bars. Syncopating your melody, as well as starting a phrase with a pickup rather than right on the downbeat, are other techniques to make your melodies more interesting, and Jeff uses that a lot. See High School is Killing Me just a few measures later. This will make it even more impactful when you do hit the downbeat or another strong beat in the measure. Lastly, we can talk about instrumentation and orchestration. Let me differentiate the two first. When I say instrumentation, I simply mean what instruments you choose to use in your song. Is it written for string orchestra, solo piano, and so on? Orchestration, at least the way I'm using it here, means how you assign different parts to different instruments. And in the case we're talking about here, voices as well. Arrangement might be another good word for it. Who sings what? Which instrument will get what lick? In Hatchetfield music, you're very rarely going to find a song without an electric guitar or a lead synth of some kind. So it's important to identify linchpins of a composer's style like that, and know that if you choose to break from it, you're intentionally subverting an audience's expectations. It happens, of course. Take Do You Wanna Play, for example. But if you're trying to imitate or learn from a specific composer, it's not as effective. Now, I've talked in the abstract a lot, so let me break down certain pieces of freedom to show how I actually applied all this. And if you haven't heard the full song yet, what are you doing here? Go listen to it. The first thing I did was label the structure in the document, so I had a roadmap of where I wanted to go. In terms of harmony, I was inspired by the descending bass line of the Nightmare Time theme, and just modified it a little bit by jumping up a 7th first before beginning the descent. For the most part, I just tried to find chords that sounded cool, but I definitely went a little off the rails at times. For melody, I actually decided to make this a song with lyrics, and so some of the melody was inspired by singing through it and seeing what sounded good while incorporating the rhythmic techniques I talked about before. Pickup notes, syncopation, and so on. Luckily for you, none of the vocals made it into the final draft. But this is a good tip in general, that your melody should be singable. When it comes to instrumentation and orchestration, I figured if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So synths, electric guitar and bass, and piano all feature prominently in my song, as they do in most Hatchetfield songs. Percussion too, of course. I also added backup vocals in the second verse, as Jeff does in a lot of his songs. Lastly, to really bring it home, I included little nods to the original source material. The bridge basically quotes Axeman, and I pulled some inspiration from my bass line from 1000 Eyes. The core riff of the song is also inspired by the Nightmare Time theme. Now, you might be asking, chipped tunes, you haven't talked about the chip tune. What gives? Well, in fairness, after several years of making Hatchetfield chiptunes, I have a pretty intuitive sense of how to translate sounds from the original song into the Sega Genesis sound engine, which I used for Freedom as well as a lot of my earliest covers. If you have any particular questions about that side of things, let me know in the comments. You can also watch my livestream from last year, where I go into a lot more detail. And there you have it. That's how I went about analyzing a particular composer's style, in this case, Jeff Blim's work in the Hatchetfield series, and applied it to write my own original song. I had a lot of fun doing this research and writing this song, so please go check out the full version if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to keep learning how to write video game music in various styles. And leave a comment below if you liked this or had any feedback on the video. I've got more of these kinds of videos in the works, as well as more chiptunes, so as always, stay tuned.